What is happening, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review M3GAN 2.0, the latest movie from Blumhouse Productions and the sequel to the absolute smash hit from 2023. And if you follow this channel for any length of time, you might be asking yourself, why is James reviewing M3GAN 2.0? Aren't these movies made for teenage girls? And isn't Blumhouse Productions like my mortal enemy on this earth? Yes to both, however. Game must recognize game, and anytime somebody can make a low-budget movie that's an original new IP that goes on to enjoy extraordinary success. And just to put in perspective, the first M3GAN movie was made for $12 million and it grossed $181 million worldwide. Well, as far as I'm concerned, even if these movies aren't made for me, that is what the movie business is all about. Coming up with a new original idea, or at least semi-original, taking a risk, taking a gamble, and then possibly, if you make a movie that delivers, enjoying enormous success. And the reason I say it's not that original is basically the story of Child's Play, but with AI. And of course, everybody now just calls them Chucky.
Talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
You stupid bitch, you filthy slut! Did you fuck with me?
The franchise was originally called Child's Play back in the day, but that just shows how popular that character became. But with M3GAN, she is the feature attraction. And if I were to criticize this latest movie, it would be that we don't get to see M3GAN enough. She's still absolutely hilarious and very well voice acted by Jenna Davis. But for whatever reason, after the enormous success of the first movie, in their infinite wisdom, they've decided, let's take this kind of horror-adjacent, semi-funny, kind of dark comedy and try to turn it into a superhero franchise or a big-budget kind of a sci-fi franchise. And I can understand their logic because when Terminator was made back in 1984, it was more or less like a straight thriller. It was a really hardcore, almost like a horror movie unto itself. Then the sequel, T2, was much more of like a big budget action spectacle. And that's basically what they're trying to do here. And I would say, but with AI, however, Terminator and Terminator 2 were also about AI. There's a lot of overlap in the overall concept when it comes to M3GAN 2.0. But perhaps before I go any further, I should tell you the premise of this new movie. 2 years after the events of M3GAN, Gemma's become an author and advocate for regulation of artificial intelligence while trapping a still active M3GAN in a small, harmless robotic doll. However, M3GAN's technology has been stolen and used by a defense contractor to create a military robot called Amelia, autonomous military engagement, logistics, and infiltration android, who becomes self-aware, turns on her creators, and attempts an AI takeover. Facing imminent destruction, Gemma's niece Katie convinces her to rebuild M3GAN with advanced upgrades so she can fight Amelia. But my theory is that the diehard fans of the first M3GAN movie have detected a not-so-subtle creative shift in the direction of the franchise, and that is why this movie is not tracking very well for its opening weekend. And that's primarily why I went to go see this, just purely for market research. I love doing box office breakdowns, and I love having an informed opinion, but also, to be blunt, or to be honest, I did enjoy the first M3GAN. Was it all for me? No, but the little murderous dance sequence that went so fucking crazy online, it's entertaining, it's weird, it's deadly, it's graceful. Like I get why people suddenly were doing viral TikTok videos imitating that dance, but the people who fell in love with that and helped turn it into a viral phenomenon, I think they're recognizing, wait a second, this is feeling more like an Iron Man movie or more like an Ironheart show as opposed to a continuation of the vibe and the style of the first M3GAN, and that's because there's been a subtle creative shift behind the scenes. Because the first movie was written by Akela Cooper, or Akela Cooper, I'm not quite sure how they pronounce the name, but the first screenplay was written by Akela Cooper based on an idea by James Wan and Akela Cooper. The sequel is written by the director Gerard Johnstone, who directed the first movie as well as this new one. And I have a feeling he basically went to Blumhouse and was like, look, I just delivered this big smash hit. Let me write the next one. I know what makes these characters tick. I know what direction we need to go. And if you believe the box office tracking for this coming weekend, M3GAN 2.0 will be lucky if it crosses 20 million in its opening weekend, whereas the first one, a less expensive movie to make and an unknown quantity at that time, opened at over 30. And so I just find it fascinating that Blumhouse in their infinite wisdom has found a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. They did that rare, wonderful, beautiful thing which almost never happens in the movie industry. They found success with a new original concept. And what did they do? They squandered it on a movie that's enjoyable, it's entertaining, it's fun. I was definitely having fun for 60-70% of the time, but the movie's way too long. It's 2 hours, whereas the first movie was an hour and 40. And the feature attraction, M3GAN herself, is largely absent from the final act of the movie in favor of placing a heavier emphasis on the human characters. And the reality is, nobody cares about the human characters in M3GAN. People want to see her saying things like,
"Hold on to your vaginas."
which is funny when she says it, but people want to see her saying fucked up shit. Before doing fucked up shit, they don't give a damn about any of the human characters. They can all be tortured to death or burn or go away. It does not matter. People want to see M3GAN. That's why they're coming to see these movies. And somehow, in their infinite wisdom, the writer-director of this movie, Gerard Johnstone, decided to shift the focus and to shift the action to a lot of the human characters, and it is to the movie's detriment. But in broad strokes, we basically have your classic scenario of a good monster versus a bad monster. And on paper, that sounds just fine. But in terms of the tone and the style and the vibe of this movie, they're definitely going for a much more lighthearted tone. And I feel like they should have leaned into dark comedy, allowed M3GAN to continue to murder little boys and dogs and all the horrible things that she did in the first movie. Because if you start trying to turn her into a good guy and defang her and declaw her, well, then she stops being M3GAN. People loved her in spite of being a murderous sociopath in the first movie, and I do think it was a mistake in this sequel to try to soften her rough edges. Let her be an evil bitch, just an evil bitch on your side. I mean, being a bitch is a huge part of the initial teaser, and I would argue that the teaser trailer for M3GAN 2.0 was the best thing that this movie had to offer. That initial dance sequence where she's just in silhouette, I was like, oh shit. They might have cracked that code again. They've got a new viral dance phenomenon on their hands. Not so. The movie does have a dance scene, and it's fine. It's not going to go viral. The scene that might go viral is a really funny... Well, actually, I guess it's a spoiler. I didn't mention at the beginning of this video whether it's going to be spoiler-free or not. I'll just say there's a scene involving singing where I, as well as the rest of the audience, was cracking up, but that's all I'll say on that. But speaking of the rest of the audience... If you go to see this movie, expect to see a lot of teenage girls there, and guess what? Teenage girls like to take their pictures. And there were several girls in my theater taking selfies with the flash on, and I was like, you know, either I or somebody else should say something, but then I realized, you know what? You're a 48-year-old man, and you're not even supposed to be here. Just let them enjoy M3GAN 2.0. But privately, in my own mind, I was thinking, if the M3GAN doll were to show up and rip your fucking spinal cord out, I would laugh and point and root her on as she did it to the second person, because taking pictures, period, in a movie, well, that's just it's indefensible. In any case, let's get back to the movie itself, because I feel like this is a rare situation where Blumhouse did manage to create a brand new intellectual property that previously did not exist in any form. And my main problem with Blumhouse is what they do to pre-existing IP, whether that's Speak No Evil, or their interpretations of The Invisible Man, or The Wolf Man, or their reboot of Halloween, or their reboot of The Exorcist. I found all those movies to be complete and total utter abominations that just should be roundly rejected and ridiculed and poked fun at. But they've had better luck when it comes to breaking new ground, or at least breaking new ground by adapting something for the first time. Like Five Nights at Freddy's was a massive success, like a year and a half ago, but there's a sequel coming out this year. That was a home run. Or with M3GAN, brand new IP, and Blumhouse absolutely hit a home run. But it's a little bewildering seeing how they seem not to have understood what made the original movie a success. Or at least from my point of view, the original movie was a success because it had that one viral dance sequence, but it was a pretty creepy little movie about AI with the occasional dash of humor or dark comedy, and it just worked. But it seems like director Gerard Johnstone decided to take this new movie and use it as a jumping off point to offer a lot of observations and critiques about the use of AI. This movie is heavily about just the world of Silicon Valley and all of its strengths and flaws. And some of those strengths and flaws are absolutely hilarious. They brought in Jermaine Clement for the sequel, and he steals each and every single scene in which he appears. And there's a new character named Christian, played by Aristotle Athari, who's the boyfriend of the character played by Allison Williams. And he becomes, let's just say, a source of comedy, even if he is not funny. His name's Christian, but he insists upon everybody calling him Christian, and and everybody is constantly either making fun of him, or some people are getting on board and kind of buying into his bullshit. Let's just say he's a snake oil salesman who pretends to be all the things that Silicon Valley would like to be, you know, wildly progressive, but also very effeminate and non-threatening, and all these qualities that might have been celebrated only a couple of years ago, but now that you're actually getting to be portrayed in a slightly more negative or comedic light in movies. And so all those scenes where people are making observations about Christian are pretty goddamn funny. So once again, this movie's got some really, really funny stuff going on, some great scenes, but they could have easily shaved 20 minutes off of it and just added 1 or 2 scenes where Megan's allowed to do some horrible, diabolical stuff. But as far as Megan's distinguished competition is concerned, Amelia, played by Ivana Sakno, I'll say this. She looks great on camera. She's very pretty. She's an incredibly physical performer, strikes great poses, looks great in action, has like that great like stare of death that is definitely necessary to be a killer AI robot on a murderous rampage. They don't really flesh out her character that much beyond just being, I'm AI and I'm pro AI and I'm looking for more AI. Whereas obviously Megan's got all the personality in the world. So Amelia could have used a little bit more of a pulse. But this new movie might have one advantage over the first movie, and that comes to the character of Katie, played by Violet McGraw, where in the first movie, she was just your classic Hollywood brat. Hollywood has a problem writing kids without either going 2 directions. Either they make them like a kind of preternaturally intelligent, precocious youth who's like wise beyond their years, or they just turn them into an absolutely insufferable brat that bites the hand that feeds them. And Katie definitely leaned into the latter category in the first movie. But now she's actually got some moments that involve some comic relief because she's gotten interested in Aikido and the character of Steven Seagal. And without revealing the payoffs, there are some pretty funny payoffs related to the career of Steven Seagal. So if you've not seen Out for Justice and Marked for Death and Above the Law and Hard to Kill and Under Siege, and I think it's Executive Decision or something like that. But anyway, there are a bunch of Steven Seagal movies out there from the late 80s and early 90s. If you're familiar with all of them, there will be some jokes that you will laugh at in the second movie. So with the benefit of hindsight being 2020, if somebody had hired me as an outside consultant and said, help us tighten the screws on M3GAN 2.0 and get it prepared for the final release, I would have said, shave 20 minutes off the total running time, reintroduce the character of M3GAN much earlier. She takes way too long to show up, and then feature her front and center in the final act and let her do some evil shit. People love the fact that she is an evil, cold-hearted bitch and hilarious and adorable all at once with her cute outfits and her little dances. Like, lean into the qualities that made her popular in the first place. Don't try to like repurpose her and turn her into a hero. She is not Arnold Schwarzenegger making the jump from Terminator to T2. Arnold Schwarzenegger, by the time he got to T2, was the world's foremost action star, world's foremost movie star, highest paid movie star. He was just in a very different place. M3GAN, the first movie, was a full-blown phenomenon, but I would have just said, embrace what made M3GAN popular in the first place. And if you can, try and replicate some sort of strange, evil dance scene that ends in somebody getting hacked to pieces. Like, obviously, no one can predict where lightning's going to strike twice, but that is what the fans clearly want. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had all those thousands of videos on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok of people imitating that fucking scene. But as far as box office predictions go, if we want to set the over-under at 20 million, I'll take the under because I feel like word of mouth in horror means everything, and word spreads very, very quickly whether a horror movie is fantastic or a turd. And this movie is not a turd, but it is less entertaining and less satisfying than the first movie. And I think there will be a lot of people who say, you know what, I'll just wait for it to pop up on Peacock and I'll watch it then. And I think in terms of total box office, forget about the 180 million that was generated by the first movie. I mean, that still just boggles the mind that you would have like a 15 times return on the original investment on the first movie. That's extraordinary. I mean, I think this new movie, it'll be lucky if it cracks 100 million, and I think that it'll only get there just out of love and affection for the first movie. But who knows? Maybe I'll be proven to be wrong. But right now, there's a lot of competition out there. We're about to enter the peak of the summer movie season with Jurassic World Rebirth next week, followed by Superman, followed by Fantastic Four First Steps in Eddington. And sometimes a little counter-programming can go a long way, where like perhaps F1 and M3GAN 2.0 will create like a little mini Barbenheimer phenomenon where the guys will take the girls to see F1 and the girls will take the guys to see M3GAN 2.0. Who knows? But people have to actually, want to see him. Like, the Barbenheimer phenomenon became a phenomenon because the girls like Barbie and the guys like Oppenheimer. So it was like, a perfect storm. With F1 and M3GAN 2.0, well, we'll just find out on Sunday morning how both of these movies have performed. In any case, I think that's all I've got to say about M3GAN 2.0. My advice would just be go back and watch the original Child's Play. All the qualities that I love about M3GAN are done better in Child's Play, but I think that movie is full-blown R-rated and much more foul-mouthed and much more entertaining, but also I was just the perfect age to watch Child's Play back in the day. And I think sometimes it gets overlooked or forgotten as one of the key horror franchises of that era. But I'm officially changing the subject now, so let's wrap the sucker up. Remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, but more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.